Hello, everyone, everywhere. This is Bob Thibodeau with the Kingdom Crossroads podcast, and you are listening to the Going North podcast with my good friend Don Brightman. Be sure to subscribe to his podcast so you will not miss any of the upcoming episodes, and be blessed in all that you do.
And today on the Highlight Reel Builder for Authors, known as GMP, the Great, Glorious, and Glamorous, it's the Going North podcast. And we got another super special, awesome human for you today, folks. It's a local author, baby. That's right, from the great state of Maryland, baby. The Queen Anne State, Mason-Dixon Live, baby. That's right, indeed. And we actually even were bread warmers together at one point, indeed, in the wonderful organization of Toastmasters. And which makes this wonderful gentleman right here, let me tell you a bit about him, because today's guest in particular, not only we shared some bread warming memories, he's also a subject matter expert, y'all, a SME. That's right, an SME in the areas of leadership, mental health, and addiction. And he himself has battled mental illness his entire life and has never stopped fighting, and he's motivated to help others overcome their mental health challenges. So let's give it up for best-selling author and the CEO of his own company, speaking to your success. Let's give it up for Mr. MT, the mighty and towering Michael Towers. How you doing today, Mike?
Doing great. Honored to be here. Honored to hang out with you for sure.
Oh yeah, man. That's right, indeed. It's even better and not butter, fellow Christians, indeed. That's right, indeed. Fellow children of the King.
Children of the King. 100%. It's beautiful. I got all my tats here. There's no mistaking it, except for it holds a special responsibility to not. I've been a fighter my whole life. It's hard to hit somebody with a right cross, and you got a left cross. I just made that up. I wasn't planned.
Well, hey, life throws a bunch of jabs at you too. So hey.
Yeah. I've beat myself up plenty. I've never ducked a good punch I've thrown. Let me tell you.
Well, there we go. Well, before a random goose appears in the Duck Duck Goose, I'm pretty sure I forgot a whole bunch of other wonderful things about the wonderful mighty Mike himself. So mind filling in any cavities I may have missed about you, my man?
No, I mean, that covers it. When I hear you say it, so SME, screwing up as a leader, addicted, mental health issues, right? So I'm an expert because of a lived experience. What I did do is when I decided I wanted to do things differently, got into mental health, got my degrees in counseling and psychology. When I earned my bachelor's degree, I made it my mission to go back out there and find people that felt like I did when they dropped out, having been successful in high school, right? My friends are going to be account executives and lawyers. And I'm taking a full medical withdrawal. I didn't think I was any less than, and I didn't know why. And then when the trouble started coming, the crimes, the hurt people, the ruined relationships, I was like a cyclone that just tore through everything. And in my rear view was wasted potential and defeat. So, yeah, I mean, I've had an interesting life. That I got a ton of stories. I assume that you have a way in which you pull some of that stuff out. But no, you nailed it. You nailed it.
Oh, sweet. I guess you could call myself Bob the Builder for the moment. Since I nailed it.
Nail on the head. I look at a nail that bends. Call me Bob the Wrecker.
There we go, Wrecking Ball Bob, baby. Oh man, so my goodness. So speaking of wrecking balls, you actually came through some rough upbringings too, and my goodness, in a way you're right now in a space where you're looking to break those generational curses, since I believe it was 6 years old when your parents divorced, right?
Yeah, I don't remember that, but I do remember shortly after that, it was a split living situation where we did like a week on and a week off. So my mom was a shock trauma nurse, and I don't know what about her situation, but she didn't have a lot of money. So I lived in Woodlawn. I lived in some apartments on Johnny Cake, off of Johnny Cake. Like, definitely, we lived on Bangor Street in Hollands Ferry. Just some different areas. Hollands Ferry was wild. That's a hyper segregated neighborhood full of rednecks and white trash that are racist, surrounded by Baltimore City. I can't make it up. I can't make it up. We sold our house to a black family. That was our contribution to the neighborhood. I'm sure it got a lot better and cleaned up after that. So Dad was out in Columbia, and then he was in Carroll County, Sykesville Middle School, Liberty High Schools, where I got my education. And Columbia was great. And I'll tell you, a very, very diverse classmates. I don't think any of us saw color or any of that. My best friend was Trinidadian. Another best friend that was Vietnamese. Thank God, because if I would have started in Carroll County, I don't know. I just don't know. But yeah, my dad was an alcoholic. And I always remember my mom being in recovery. I remember being in circles at NA meetings, doing the prayer. I remember my dad just driving drunk all the time, knowing what kind of day it would be if at 6 a.m. he went to this liquor store on Route 40 in Howard County, and he would get a bottle of gin and put it underneath the seat. There would be times when he would drop me off at a friend's house for the weekend, and it should be a good time. It's a sleepover. All my friends are coming over, but my sister's still in the car with my dad. And I did a son of an addicted father for 42 years. He had 6 years of sobriety, was the most he had. And in that 11 months into that 6 years, he led me to AA and 12-step programs to get sober. Now 24 years of sobriety. My dad was a psychotherapist, so I got into counseling. My dad had a hard life, but he gave me and taught me everything I am is because of my dad. But moving house to house, my dad's got different girlfriends, a stepmom. My mom's got I have a new stepdad. Just I feel like it's normal nowadays, Dom, but it's challenging. And I've done a lot of soul work on myself. And I've been in a lot of environments where I was doing soul work with other men, or I help men do soul work. And the messages that get taken on by alcoholic fathers and divorces, and that I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I don't matter, and to carry those messages into adulthood and have those things dominate my life. So I was a joyful kid. I loved school. I loved life. I just wanted to be friends with everyone. And then I hit the 7th grade. And the 7th grade, I started to get bullied for my buck teeth, for my glasses, for my big ears, because I wore British Knights and not Nike Airs. And that's when a lot of the messages came online for me. And so, I always say that every ounce of muscle on my body has a bully's name on it. And so I started fighting back in the 10th grade. So I've been, I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm going to fight you tooth and nail. If you don't even return an email, it's personal. And I'm a rescuer. I'm a hero. I want to help other marginalized, beaten up people. So I have a hero complex. Super me. And I do have ADHD and bipolar. So yeah, yep, that's it.
Man, oh man, so much to unpack there indeed. My goodness, every ounce of muscle a bully's name on it. My goodness, man, that's longer than like a ancient Chinese scroll, my man. Them long scrolls back in the day. Those Alexandrian libraries with all the scrolls.
They're a little covered up. They're not in the best. They're not as tight as they used to be. I try to, I know the exercise and the fitness is so important, but such a hard hill to climb. It really is.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's like, man, why couldn't the flexibility from the 20s just stay? You just have the bad diet and you'd be like, oh yeah, I'm fine, walk it off, you'll be fine. Like, no.
Right. Nope. Every decade, it's like, now it's like, I've got to eat right. If I don't eat right, it's, that number, that metabolism, it's now gotten past the point where I got to eat right or I have to exercise, but I'm not going to, we spend 4,300 hours a year, or our lifetime, 4,200 hours of our life exercising and 31,000 eating. So
Yeah, it kind of be scary when you think about it that way, man.
Yeah.
My goodness, indeed. But man, it ain't just about the body, it's about the soul. And you mentioned soul work indeed, and always invite folks to share their spirituality on the podcast, man. So what was that like for you? Because I think it was back in 95 or 98 into that November where you originally had that
Yeah.
feeling of lightness. And since then, of course, some more valleys appeared to help you develop yourself.
Yeah, tell me about it. And so I'll get to valleys. But no, in the third grade, I begged God, I prayed to this God that the principal not call my father. And when the principal called my dad, I didn't see, God didn't work, and didn't have another discussion around God, any desire to pursue God until, I don't know the order of things. I think I read A Purpose Driven Life before I got sober. And to read A Purpose Driven Life, wow, what a book for a non-believer to be able to go, okay, I'm not going to put this down. I mean, this is simple enough, right? I got to attend Rick's church 6 weeks in a row when I was in California. But always, like I said before we got on, always somebody around. My kicker on my college football team, my running back on my high school football team, a buddy of mine from Columbia. There was always a Christian that was walking alongside of me. And now I know without a shadow of a doubt, right, that God was hoping I'd come online with him a lot earlier than I did. But he was always there. I can tell you that much. So yeah, I got sober in 1998. 98 was tough. I dropped out the spring semester. When I went into the fall, it was the first semester I wasn't in college since I started in 95. I was selling cars at a car dealership, not sober, but I started attending AA with my dad on July 25th of 98. And what I'll tell you about 12-step programs, they always remembered my name. They always welcomed me back. They always remembered my story. And I just thought, man, this is a selfish world. Like, I just couldn't understand how people could care so much about another person. And then I would look at those steps and I would see, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we carried this message to other alcoholics, addicts, whatever. And it's like, I don't understand how that's going to help me. I need a bag of money, a lawyer, a girl with a car, and credit. Like, those are the things that I need. Helping others is 10th. But I got on my knees on November 13th of 98 because my life was a disaster and I didn't know what to do. And it wasn't that I believed in God. Every day in 98, I wasn't going to drink again. I wasn't going to do coke. I wasn't going to smoke weed. I was going to go to class. I was going to get my life together. And every night I'm digging through the grass where I threw that bag of weed because I was never going to smoke again. Pull at Gators till 2 a.m., 3 a.m. for pitchers, not getting anywhere in life and passing out on somebody else's couch, coming too hungover, trying to figure out who the heck I was with and why there was blood on my sweater. Was it mine or was it theirs? So when I got on my knees, I didn't believe in myself anymore. I had no faith in my ability to change the narrative at all. So I said, God, please help me. And that was it. And when I fell asleep that night, I didn't feel anything miraculous, but when I woke up the next morning, the alarm went off and I'm normally already 20 minutes behind. And I woke up and I felt this peace. And my first thought after acknowledging that peace, saying, I feel it, I feel this, that I was never going to drink or use drugs again for the rest of my life. So with one prayer, complete psychic change. And I did all 12 steps, sponsor retreats, like everything that a 12-step program offered me, I've done, did, and still do to some degree. And that was my God, right? Was a higher power. God as I understand him. And all that meant, Dom, was I wasn't going to explore putting a name to it, even though whenever I prayed growing up, it was always in Jesus' name I pray. I asked a pastor one time, why do I always do that? He goes, because Jesus lives inside you. And I'm not going to go towards him because that path is narrow. I can't sleep with women unless I'm married to them. I can't rob, cheat, and steal, which I did for a good 6 years after I got sober. These are things that are not permissible, and I don't want the mental wrestling match that comes with the guilt and shame from doing what I know is wrong. In June of 2006, I was watching the movie The Departed. I watched that movie 5 times that weekend. It with Tombstone is my favorite movie, those 2 movies. And there was a scene I peeped out. And I felt like if you watch it, you really look at it, there's a lot of symbolism. The way Jack Nicholson talks to Matt Damon as if he's his father, trust me, that kind of stuff. But then I saw a picture of Jesus. That's how the scene opens up. But it's a picture Leonardo DiCaprio has in his hands, and he smashes it over the guy's face. And I went, ha ha ha, that's what you always do, Jesus. You always smash me over the head. And I heard something in my stomach. I could feel sound. And he said, well, that's what you need. You need to be banged over the head. You're stubborn, and you don't learn. And I didn't say that. I wasn't waking up that day in a particular mood to beat myself up. Jesus talked to me. And there was a guy, I talk about Mr. Wilder. In the 8th grade, I brought a handgun to school, and I brought it to be cool. No bullets, just look at me, I'm a gangster, whatever that, Cypress Hill, how I could just kill a man. I mean, I was a persona of a scared child, and didn't want to be bullied anymore. And a lot of doors in the neighborhood weren't open to me anymore. But Mr. Wilder let me come to his house. And I remember when I first met him, he came over to me. Me and Jason were trying to catch steaks, and he said, hey, we know what you did or whatever, and we don't condone that kind of behavior, but we just want to say that we love you and you're welcome here. And on Saturday nights, when I would spend the night at Jason's house, Sunday night, I would go to Friendship Baptist Church. And then I would go to Bible study. And I had to do all that crap to get a ride home. And I would check off the hymns. And then you get to the message, and it's like, oh, my Lord, how long is this one going to be? And just I wasn't catching the Holy Ghost at all. But when I had that experience with God, right? That was about 5 o'clock. At about midnight, I got a phone call from Mr. Wilder's son. And I hadn't heard from Jason forever. Jason was drinking himself to death. He had gotten separated. His wife was moving on, and he hated God. And I started to talk to him about my issues around alcohol. And because I harnessed that 12-step style of we and me and not him, he said, I really like what you're saying. Is it okay if I come over? And he came over, and that night he crashed out. And when he woke up in the morning, this man hated God, and I think he still hates God. His dad was a deacon at Friendship Baptist. I was in very questioning space, and he had scripture to support everything that I was thinking. He gave me all the evidence that I needed. And I took him home, and I sat down with his dad. And when I walked in, Jason went upstairs, and Mr. Wilder was in the kitchen. And he had a V-neck white T-shirt. He wasn't ready to war that day. And he looked like Wayne Newton. He never said a bad thing about anybody. I've heard him be direct, but never angry. He's never gossiped. Like, this man is he's Christian, right? And I know we come in all forms, shapes, and sizes, but this guy is what I felt like a Christian was supposed to be. And I said to him, I said, your book says this, and the whale, and virgin birth, and it's like, come on, man, this is foolish. This is just tell me you're serious here with this noise. And I said, I got a question for you that I know you can't say yes to. Do you think you're going to heaven? And he was the most humble man that I ever met. He could not say that he was going. How could you assume that? It seems presumptuous, right? Mm-hmm. And tears started running down his face. And he leaned across that table and he said, I have no doubt I'm going to heaven. And I wanted everything that man had. And I accepted Christ at that moment. And I wish I could tell you things were great. But no matter what happened and how many twists and turns and plane wrecks, Jesus Christ, like you said, is my king. He's my father. And no matter what I do, he won't love me any less.
Amen to that. Amen to that, man. Like, it's so true about the, like, the thing is that one thing I feel like a lot of folks tend to get wrong about the faith is the fact that folks may see it on the outside, like, oh yeah, there's these perfect people, and the other side is like, oh, there's all these hypocrites in the building. But at the end of the day, it's like we're all human. And to be honest, the Christian walk isn't an easy walk. It's actually harder to be a Christian than to not be a Christian.
100%. 100%.
Like like that's the part that they'll tell you about. Like I remember even one of my Sunday school teachers back in the days, like, yeah, I'm just praying for this friend of mine to get saved so he can, go through the refining fire like myself. So that way they can realize, like,
Refining
hey.
fire. Yeah. The kids at Mosaic, I mean, kids that I've watched from 5 years old to now 13 and, and ready to go to college. I mean, I remember telling these kids when they were very young, listen, you're going to be different. You're going to be very different. Kids are going to talk about things that you're going to want to do. They're going to be smoking things and drinking things that you're going to want to smoke and drink. And then you're going to wonder, it's just not fair. It's not fair that they get to do these things and I have to do this, and you're going to be isolated in a way. I said, but I'm here to tell you, the Bible says that it's the path, right? And it's the path to have the life that God has designed for us. And he'll let us freely go whichever way we want. But if we take the right fork, it's our best life. If we take the wrong one, still going to love us, right? Loved King David, right? His life got messy. His life got really, really messy. And this was a man after God's own heart. It's going to matter. It's going to make a difference. You can't see it now, but if you just stay on that narrow path.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm talking about indeed. That's what I'm talking about indeed. So my goodness, man, my goodness, like now you're a speaker, a motivational speaker, and helping out folks. And I know you didn't always have this level of God-given confidence. So my goodness, man, and you've done, I believe, what was it, 9 paid speaking engagements so far, and it's just the first of many to come.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it all depends on my attitude, right? I mean, and that's the wild thing too. I would say I first I've been speaking in 12-step programs for years. And Dom, I always knew, and because you've been doing it your whole life, and I'm certain you were born for it, and that you had these skills. In a meeting, I can change the entire tone of the meeting. I see how many people nod. I know that as soon as I start talking, no one can take their eyes off me. I've had that. And I always tell people, like, you're a professional speaker. Like, did you go to school for that? No, I committed crimes. Because there's no other harder impromptu speaking than standing in front of a judge to convince him not to throw you in jail. It's impromptu table topics. Let me tell you something. Let a judge throw a question at you and see table topics. But no, I love Toastmasters. Love it. I will tell everybody all the time when they're like, what do I got to do what you're doing? Go to Toastmasters. Call me in a month. So speaking, I knew I could talk. I knew I could, get out of trouble. And then I was doing a talk for Teen Challenge, just my testimony. And a couple guys asked me that night, hey, why don't you become a motivational speaker or something? And I discounted it initially because it's like, when you're downtrodden, my message is just right. They're my audience, but I know God talks to people. So I sat there for a day and I thought, how can I immediately speak somewhere and get instant affirmation that I should pursue this? And I called the honors director at my 2-year, and like God has done this whole time. I love getting in. Well, I love when people begin to get into discussions with me about God not existing because of all the evil things that happen and he kills babies or whatever narrative. And just know all I hear is you don't want to get up and go to church on Sunday, or somebody burned you when you were younger. I'd rather they not say, I'm not religious or I'm spiritual and I don't want to go to church. I'd rather them say to me, it's not a priority, right? Let's just be honest about it. It's not a priority. You make it about, like you said, hypocrites and everything else. But he said, and the reason I said all that was, he said, it's funny you called. No, it's not funny I called. God told me to call you, damn it. But he was planning the back to school night dinner, and it was for the honors program. And he said, I need an alumni speaker. You'd have 12 minutes. Do you want to speak? So I wrote that talk. I had it timed. I practiced it. I mean, it was everything. It was my first speaking engagement. And I was there with my ex-wife, and the honors kids started doing their, they came up and spoke. I said to my wife, I'm like, ugh, I wrote the wrong speech. These kids smoke weed or, sniff Ritalin. Like, they weren't hanging from the ceiling fan like gremlins, flying all over the room. Like, they went to class. Like, this, it's not going to land. And she's like, well, I wouldn't let it bother you. The president of the college isn't even paying attention. And I looked over and she had her back to the podium, click-clacking on her telephone. And I said to my ex-wife, I said, yeah, but she's going to be. And my ex-wife said, what are you going to say? And I'm like, the truth. And it was like right about then, Jay invited me to the podium. And I said, this is how I did it, Dom. I was like, I didn't know what I wanted to study in college. I didn't know what school I was going to go to. I don't know that I really even wanted to go to college, but that's what you do, right? You go to college. And I didn't talk to my friends about it. I didn't talk to my parents. I didn't consult the guidance counselor. But one thing that has motivated me every step of the way, it's guided me every step of the way, and that was marijuana. And as soon as I said that, the college president rolled around in her chair. The one hippie dad in the back is like, yeah. Talk about marijuana. The kids' faces have dropped, and I said, yeah, marijuana. I mean, it's like a series of wows and whats. It's like wow, man. I'm gonna be a stockbroker on Wall Street, man. I'm gonna make so much money. And then it's always like, dude, man, we got economics class right now. It's like, what? It's like, wow, what? Wow, what? And I said, smoking weed for me was like a puppy dog running on a linoleum floor. A whole lot of activity, but no forward progress, And that's how it started. And 11 minutes later, the college president came up to me and said, it's the best speech that I had ever heard. And so I was all in. That felt so good. I called my honors because at one point I had to ask to be in the honors program because my grades were good, right? I got a 3.87 when I went back the sixth time to get my associates and my bachelor's. But because of my current GPA, there was no way I was eligible for the honors. So he said, write an essay. I wanted to go back to colleges and tell people that, look, 67%, and that's the last I checked those numbers, of kids that drop out do so because of mental illness, uncharacterized, undiagnosed mental illness. I wanted to help my people. And I pursued it. And so you'll hear this theme. The next thing that happened, we had joined Mosaic, like I told you, right after that. And a group I went to, it was Carl Kuhl, our pastor. He had a dinner group at his house, kind of like Ask the Pastor thing. And he had us all over there, and sitting directly across from me, Dom, I can't make it up, was the director of student activities for Towson University. And that was my alma mater. So my ex-wife kicked me. So I talked to Duran. Duran had me speak 5 times at different fraternities and sororities. CCBC had me come back. I had videotapes. I mean, I had flashcards. Well, you haven't seen me too much with the flashcards, but Toastmasters Newport Beach, they kept begging me to put the cards down. And Duran watched how much pressure I would put on myself to be perfect and remember this script and go through. And then a fraternity guy would come in. I'd say, come on, man, we're talking about weed and keg stands and being handcuffed to sorority sisters. And he would watch me jump off of the script and be myself. So he just poured into me. And then the infidelity, and then the separation, and then the divorce. And then I come home, and you said something very major. I got to give you the floor again. But I'll get to full out professional speaker, corporate. Is this in my future? I'm going to give it back to you. When I came home, like you said, those self-doubt, those negative messages, those things were online. And I couldn't even begin to think to step into my purpose because I didn't deserve it. and I felt so crappy about myself. So that's 2017.
Man, yes indeed, yes indeed. Yeah, yeah. Well, it still probably feels like a marathon with all with all that happening, right?
Yeah, yeah. They did my video mosaic in 2014. No, might have been 2000. No, it was November 2014. Carl did a fundraising campaign for the Arundel campus that we had for a little while, and my video played, and the other two people they played videos for that series, man, they had to ask questions. One couple, they had to drag the information out of them. They said, and I think they're full of crap, but there's a couple people that have said, they said, okay, why don't you tell me your story? And 2 hours later, I was done. That the editing, I had to do a lot of editing to get a 3-minute video, three and a half minute video. And there's a lot of pain in that. There's a lot of successful stuff, a lot of good memories and stuff, but every ounce of pain, every failure, every defeat had to happen for me to get me to the place that I got to recently. But I don't know, I started to heal. I read a book called The Ragamuffin Gospel. And when I read The Ragamuffin, you familiar?
Oh yeah, I remember you mentioned that in the book. It's on my wish list now.
Yeah. Oh man. So recovering alcoholic priest, Brennan Manning. Not only did Jesus come to earth to get people talked about him, denied him, betrayed him, killed him, he did it for people like me, specifically ragamuffins, rejects, throwaways, outcasts. And why? He loves us because we readily receive the grace that he offers because we don't have anything else. And, I've said it's my pastor's line. It's in the book. When you're at rock bottom, you're just right for God's grace. And when I read the Ragamuffin Gospel, what I said was, and this was at a time where I thought if I came back from Cali, if I came back and I was on probation, and if I did everything right, God would give me my ex-wife back. And instead, I found dating apps, slept with many women, buried in shame. It's hard to be connected to God when you're full of shame. Contradictory life and love Jesus and letting down constantly. I can't even repent or ask for forgiveness because I can't even look at him. When I read that book, I said, wow, okay, Jesus, I cannot look at porn today. I cannot get on a dating app today. I mean, you knew every stupid thing that I was going to do and you let them nail you to a cross anyway. Yeah. I can put one foot in front of the other and stay on that narrow path. And I make mistakes, but there's an immediate reconciliation with God. There's repentance and there's a desire to get back up and do better. My walk now is one where God gets all of this, right? You hear about laying all your gifts at his feet and giving them to him. Right? Oswald Chambers is a big Christian writer, probably the best, like the second best mouthpiece to Christ other than Paul, right? And, spent 3 years reading the same Oswald Chambers and every, year finding the way stuff talked to me. And so I started to feel like I could do it again. I felt like I was healthy. I felt like I wasn't taking 1 step forward and 2 steps back or caught in the quicksand of sin. So I got myself together. That was July of 2018. I met my wife at a volunteer commitment we did for Mosaic called Second Chance in September 1 of 2018. And I was celibate for those 2 months. And then while we were engaged, I was celibate and never had done or would thought to have done that, for a woman or for marriage or any of that. I did it. And then we go into 2019, and it was my best year for production ever. I made 6 figures. I was project manager for a lot of gigs. I was even doing some labor. And then on it's November 16th of 2019, I was doing a convention at the Marquee in Washington for the Society for Human Resource Management. And I had done a couple of legs of their like conventions. I've been in New Orleans for them, Chicago for them, and now I'm in DC. And that morning, and that's the first thing I think of when you say subject matter expert leadership. I only was leading 6 guys, and I've led 120 well before. And these 6 guys, some of the wrong two bad apples among the 6, and it was enough of a problem where my boss came up to me, a guy that I really liked, a colleague, and said, you know, if I could, I'd throw you out of here right now. And I was heartbroken. And I took a call about 20 minutes before that. My dad had fallen down the stairs. My dad would die from an overdose 3 weeks later. And I was heartbroken. And I got a radio call to go into the next room. One of the speakers needed my help, and her name was Mary Shetty, and she was a high-level executive for SHRM. And you know, I'm taping down her cables. I'm helping her with her PowerPoint, get them launched, and I'm quiet, I'm subdued, I'm sad, I'm heartbroken. And here's the lesson. I didn't have any words. I didn't certainly in another environment where I'm trying to prop myself up or make you think more of me or all that unhealthy thinking that goes along with someone that just wants to matter or be good enough. So I asked her a couple questions about herself. She started talking about how she played basketball at the University of Iowa, and just an amazing Christian woman. And I said, I want to speak about mental health. I'm trying to speak for a long time. And she said, do you know Felix? I said, no, I don't know Felix. She goes, I'm going to call Felix up. She calls this guy Felix. Felix will tell you he doesn't know why he even came up there. And I'm sitting out there with Felix in the hallway. And he said that Mary had put him in charge of the Second Chance Initiative. And it's like God kicked me in the ribs and said, this is like Eminem. This is your one shot. Do not miss your opportunity to blow, right? I got up and I said, hey, I was looking at a mattress in a dumpster after I was evicted from a sleazy hotel because I was unfaithful to my wife and getting divorced. And, you know, I did the therapy. I got the meds right. I read the books. I submitted to Christ. I mean, I did the work. And I said, you know, on September 1st, I met my wife at a facility for untapped resources for people with a criminal record. And the name of that facility is Second Chance. And I showed him my tattoo, Second Chance. And he just gets up and he's like, Mike, you got to go tell Mary, like, I'm going to go get her. He grabbed Mary, brought her out of the room, told her my story. Mary's brother had died an hour before that. Ooh. So, yeah. And I was just baffled that he's got 100 things to do at this convention, and her brother just died. And these two want to see me. They want to, I said to you, unreservedly elevate others around us. Unreservedly. Jesus was uninterruptible. Or no, yeah, he was interruptible, right? So you could interrupt Jesus. And so I went to her brother's funeral. She was in Iowa. She didn't know I was coming. I just wanted to be around people like that. People said I was crazy. My brother said I was crazy. My wife thought I was crazy, but she is ride or die, right? So we go out and we honor this woman. We honor her brother. And a month later, she says, I want you to apply to SHRM's Speakers Bureau. And I went, oh, wow. And I mean, I knew SHRM was the biggest HR organization in the world. I knew they were 300,000 members. I wanted to speak on a rock in a park for free. And I could see what God's doing. So I apply and I get accepted. Kathy Harris, the director of the SHRM Speakers Bureau, told me after my first corporate virtual speech, November 10th of 2021, she said, Mary Shetty shoved you down my throat. She would not take no for an answer. You weren't a speaker, right? But when they put me there, that was the first taste that somebody believed in me. Because Dom, I couldn't believe in myself. And when that mustard seed of belief in me, and there's a humility now that has followed that, right? Where I am fearless I know who I am. I know whose I am. I matter. I'm good enough. I deserve every ounce of success I'm going for. I've put the work in. I've persevered through the pain. I've walked through the fire, but I'm humble because I know this mind, this mouth, my hands, my soul, right? My heart are his words, right? It's his opportunity. They're his gifts. And that is the spirit in which I walk in. I have trouble expressing verbally to people what I do, especially the people that know me. When they ask me how I'm doing, I said, if I told you, you wouldn't believe me. I don't believe it. And as long as I keep that attitude, yes, 9 times, I'm sure you have an idea of what they pay. I'm at the low level. And when they called me about that, they had told me that they were negotiating with the Speakers Bureau, and they reached out and asked for me. Someone attended that virtual talk in November, and she said, "What's your fee?" And I said, they paid me like $500 to speak at Towson and CCBC. I said, I mean, that sounds right. And I said, but you guys paid me $3,000 to do VLBM online. I said, maybe we keep the market there. And there was this silence. And I thought I asked for too much, and I pushed them away. And she said, Michael, I'm not starting you for under $7,500.
Nice.
And I had to compose myself.
Nice.
Because the thing with God is that for Mike Towers, and I say this a lot, Jesus loves Mike Towers. It just doesn't make, none of it has ever made any sense. He's been in a car with me. God has spoken through people, and I knew just based on something they said, or it was just too coincidental that they could even be there speaking about that at that time. I want to be this. God says, you got it, Michael. And he makes me this. That kind of money, Dom, can allow me to step into this full time. And then what can I do? I can write the books, because that book I wrote, I didn't seek that out. A woman that attended that talk in November said, would you like to be a part of this book? And I want to be a part of anything. You ask me to do anything, I want to belong. I want to be a part of. But I thought, what, write a chapter for a book? Yeah. Cage fight? I mean, you could think of a better title. And then for it to be an international bestseller, I still feel like that's some kind of like hack or something. But a great book. And my goal is to put enough of those books out that somebody finds one underneath the park bench. Somebody with bipolar, somebody who's got a court date and they're facing 33 years in jail like I was. And they're just in shock because they're not a bad person and they don't know how it happened. And just bewildered at how bad life is. And it was never supposed to be that way. So I said it on Facebook, I love HR, right? On that bracelet. I want to tell them, hey, I'm using you, just so you know. I love you. I'm using you to go help me at 19 years old.
So my goodness, so the wonderful book Cage Fight. So you want to make sure this book gets across the whole world and land under some shiny park benches indeed. So a funny question I'm loving to ask folks, and that is, if the book Cage Fight was a food, what would it be and why?
Oh, wow. I asked, I applied to be a personal trainer at Equinox, world-class gym. And they asked me in the interview, if I was a food, what would I be? And I said, macaroni and cheese. And they're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, it's comforting. Everybody loves macaroni and cheese. I think I got that job because of that answer, because they have heard so many trainers say some BS that's healthy, and I just came right off the cuff with it. If it was a food, I mean, I think that it's a great question, Dom. What is a food that hits you later, that maybe isn't so tasty? Maybe it's like oatmeal. Maybe it's you eat it and it isn't the most desirable thing, but you're going to be full. And I think if you look at my story, and you have, there's a lot of pain there, right? When I tell the story live to HR pros, there's tears. And when you're reading that, when you see the line, my wife died from prolonged exposure to me, that hurts. The reason I kept reading the AA Big Book after I listened to the founder's story, where he was basically told to him and his wife that he was going to die of alcoholism with a wet brain, and laid out how he was going to die. And he resigned himself to it. He had no faith in anything other. He was downhill, and he looked at his wife and he said, oh, she was so, we had such a good life. And I mean, so desperate. I kept flipping those pages because there was a line that said how dark it is before the dawn. I take my readers to the darkest place you can go. And I know I'm bringing the dawn. And the dawn is that no matter your hurts, no matter who hurt you, or no matter who I hurt, no matter my mistakes, and no matter my diagnosis, I've been able to accomplish everything that I've wanted to accomplish. And I'm living a life beyond my wildest dreams. And if that's the message, you can too.
Oh, that's what I'm talking about. Indeed, that's what I'm talking about. Indeed. So since my man's on a bit of an interview tour, is there a question that you wish you'd be asked more often when you're on the guest side of the game?
You know, when I get to talk about my faith, it's awesome because in the corporate space, I'm shrewd about it. Like my slides, I have a quote from King Solomon. I get it in there. I mean, you're definitely going to walk away knowing that I'm Christian, but in the corporate space, try to be shrewd. So I love questions around that with the podcasts. But if I were to handpick a question that is most impactful, and then I think I get asked, but you know, obviously you see I'm verbose, hyperbolic, and I got a lot of words because there's a lot of stories. It'd be great for a book writer, right? But so we never get around to what would you tell your 19-year-old self if you could go back to 19 years old, before the second-degree burglary, before the separation and divorce, before you dogged out and disrespected so many women, before all the college dropouts? What would you tell your 19-year-old self? That'd be the question I think that it should be asked every time, because that's what I'm in it for.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, indeed. Well, heck, so what would you tell your 19-year-old self, indeed? That's right, besides avoid the beer and the marijuana.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, like even if we said 20, like 21, I went back after I got sober, and that semester I took the full medical withdrawal. And that maybe 21 is the best time because I was baffled. I quit drinking. I thought that's what the problem was. And now I'm all in on school. My number one priority is college, but my number one problem is my ability to focus. And hey, you've got the ADHD, you know that. You've got bipolar, you know that, right? You know that it's been tough to afford, it's been tough to get health insurance because you're borderline unemployable. You can't keep a job over 90 days to get health insurance. You certainly spend your money on Jordans and poker or blackjack. So, or, you know, before then weed and alcohol. You're not going to be paying for meds out of pocket, but you have a serious diagnosis. Bipolar is one of three serious mental illnesses. And if you treat it, right, and there are options, healthcare for the homeless, Medicaid, there are solutions. You pursue those solutions to the end. You know you don't want to be this way. You know you want to succeed. And I would just say that would be my advice, is see it through. When I got sentenced to psychiatry in 2006 by a judge who sentenced me to 5 years in the Department of Corrections and suspended all of it, he said, okay, bipolar then, right? If you don't get help, you're going to die a violent death, or I'm going to lock you up for the rest of your life. But we'll go with the bipolar the one time. I sentence you to psychiatry. And my life changed. My life changed. So even as I'm telling my 21-year-old self, I had to be dragged out to psychiatry by a bailiff. And, but I got 2 degrees, happily married, made some mistakes, married to the woman of my dreams, professional speaker. Everything that I've desired has not only happened, it's happened in a way that I could have never done. If I haven't even solicited a job yet, I haven't cut up any of my videos, reels. I drop bombs, you know, because I write it that way. I'm a better writer than I am a speaker. My God, if I could learn how to shut up Me and my pastor talk about this all the time. Like, you know how the De Beers family with the diamonds, how you heard this kind of metaphor or whatever, how they control how many diamonds are in the market, so they're
Mhm.
more valuable. They got diamonds and diamonds and diamonds somewhere, but they're going to control it, and it makes it more valuable. What kind of man would I be if I said 500 words instead of 1,000? How much would my words be worth if I picked and chose them better? And that's the next phase for me. But once I start cutting up these videos, and I'm consistent on social media, and I'm not chasing a check as a production, I'll never look down on production work. It pays the bills. I love it. I'm a projectionist for a gig tomorrow. It's one thing I'm proud of myself about is I've never ditched my responsibilities to pursue something that was an unknown. I understand that people do that. Every one of these coaches is going to call me a fool if they watch me not take risk. I always say taking risk is jumping off the cliff and building your wings on the way down. Right? I've taken plenty of risk. This is prudence. This is Proverbs. And once I can step into the speaking work professionally, every talk speaker growth is exponential. I speak one talk, I get 9 talks in 2022. I do 9 talks, I get 40 in 2023. And at that number I told you, project that out 10, 15, 20 times. And I do know how to make multiple streams of income as a professional speaker. So now you put those in place. And then what am I doing? Yeah, I'll go on vacation for the first time in my freaking life, But what I will be doing is figure out all the different ways I can give that money back. So many different ways. And that's what I'm excited for. Dave Ramsey says, live like no one else. So later you can live like no one else and give like no one else. It's all I want to do. And as long as I keep that attitude, right? That attitude, how's God not going to root for the guy that wants to lead people to him and help hurting people?
Oh, that's what I'm talking about, indeed. Helping hurting people, indeed, because there's a lot of hurt people out there, indeed. And we need some real, authentic people helping out people. We want the genuine article. We don't want the pleather jacket.
Amen.
That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. Well, man, probably already touched on it, but hey, we're going to go with the wonderful trademark question. Since my man already mentioned 21, this was totally different. So you wake up tomorrow and it's still the year 2022, but you're 25 again. What advice would you give to yourself?
Wow. It's the same. It's the same. I committed to burglary in 2004. That's 27 years old. 25 years old. Mike, let's look. You got shot at outside of a row home on Whitelock in Druid Hill, Baltimore at 1 a.m. If he holds the gun like this and not like this, you might catch a bullet. Those are the things, all the failure and the head scratching. And it's like everything I try, I gain no traction. It's mental illness, right? And if I'm allowed to talk to 25-year-old Mike as 45-year-old Mike, if that's permissible, Dom, it's like, man, you got to hear what I'm doing now. Being a professional speaker for somebody that loves to talk is so dope. Like, I mean, it's like I wanted to be an NBA basketball player. I did. That would have been dope, right? I cannot think of another equivalent of I'd like to hip hop dance. I'd like to rap. I mean, those are some things I'd like to be good at. But other than rapper, hip hop dancer, I'd want to be a professional speaker. I get to lead people to Christ. Christ's calling is to lead disciples, right, from many nations to him. And I get to do that for a trade. Get out of town, man. And there's some financial freedom in that. And let's go.
Well, let's go indeed. And folks need to go to my man's wonderful website and check out all of his wonderful wares and keep up with what you're doing. So for those who want to stay in contact and keep watch on the journey of the mighty MT himself, what's the best way for folks to do so?
Speakingofyoursuccess.com is my website. It's doing an overhaul right now. And so the current sites online, when they stuff it in a new Squarespace, but you'll find my current space, certainly Michael Towers at LinkedIn. Instagram is Michael's Best Life. And yeah, that's about it. Yeah, call me. I'd put it out there, but you got 6,000 downloads. Who knows who is going to call me up on the phone. Email me, guys. I will do anything for anyone within my power and ability. So if you're hurting with mental illness and you too really are kind of confounded with what's going on, I'd like to tell you a little bit about my story, and there's some resources out there I'd like to direct you to. No charge. There's coaches on Instagram. They'll take your money.
Yeah. Yeah, they will take your money, and they will be on the lookout for more money to take from you.
Yeah.
And they'll smile all through the whole process, sadly.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Brag about it with a cigar in their mouth, right? Yeah. It's about doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do. I know you from the moment I met you. I love your flow, your vibe, all of it, your encouragement. When you said that my chapter qualified, and thank you.
Yes, it did. Well, hey, definitely honored to have you on, man, and definitely glad my man's out there sharing the good word of the ghost spell, helping folks to overcome too, because folks definitely need it, man. So, any parting words before we close up shop, my man?
Grace, when you're in the storm and things are going bad, there is help, but you got to give yourself grace. And I know for those people out there suffering with mental illness, especially severe mental illness, you're not a bad person trying to get good, right? You're a sick person that needs to get well. So that's it. Thank you, Dom.
Thanks a bunch for tuning in and setting aside some of your time to listen to this wonderful podcast, Going North. If you really enjoyed what you heard, do me a solid and share this with your network and someone that you care about that would get something out of it too. And be sure to subscribe to hear more, and heck, even check out the backlog if you would like, because there are hundreds of episodes to choose from, and they just keep getting better and not butter.